if they do not get, the defensive impact that they had last year, and they're not hitting their threes, that's what makes the game over for the Toronto Raptors. All right, let's go. Hello and welcome to the Wednesday, December 21st edition of the TV on Basketball podcast with your host, TV. Hope you're having a fantastic day and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I do have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for updates on the podcast and for other great content. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, actually no, let's start with YouTube first. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. And if you're listening to this on any podcast network, for example, Apple Podcasts, leave a review, subscribe, all that good stuff. And then on any other podcast network, just support your boy any way possible. That would be highly, highly appreciated. And today, we're back with another episode, and there is quite a bit to talk about. A topic I do not want to talk about because my Raptors are currently on a 6-game losing streak, but we're going to get to that. Going to be also talking about starting a new series on the pod, which might carry over to another series I might be doing, another podcast, but we'll have to wait and see. And of course, we're going to be talking about some injuries and the Knicks. Yes, we're going to be talking about the Knicks on today's episode too, so it should be a really good, action-packed episode. Again, thank you guys for all your support going through all this. Daily uploads on still the Instagram and the TikTok. Thanks you guys for showing your support there. And just be on the lookout for some more podcast updates in terms of this podcast or a future podcast that might be coming through. Just be on the lookout for that. And yeah, just excited. Not really starting with that yet, but at least we're going to be going into these topics. So yeah, should be a really, really good episode. And without further ado, let's just get right into it. And it's, these type of episodes, when you have a bad topic to talk about your team, you just want to, rip it open like a Band-Aid. Let's just get it over with. I mean, in the words of James Draws, Raptors, what happened? That was really bad. That was really, really bad. But yeah, my poor Raps are right now 10th place in the Eastern Conference, hanging on for dear life at a 13-18 record, currently on a 6-game losing streak. Yeah, I mean, so far this season, they have been kind of like floating in that 500 range for basically throughout the entire season, and now they've gone under, their first really major roadblock of the season, and honestly, so far they've been one of the league's most disappointing teams, especially last year, being, I believe it was 5th place in the East, a very high defensive rating, and their offense, just being passable. They were really good. Scotty Barnes' development was looking great. Siakam looked like an All-NBA player, which he became. Fred VanVleet was an All-Star. It was all looking, well and dandy. But so far this year, a lot of injuries. OG Anunoby missing some time. Pascal, Freddie coming in and out of the lineup. Gary Trent, Precious Achiuwa. That's a lot of people coming in and out of the lineup. And it's just unfortunate because it has led to this Raptors slow start. I talked about the 6-game, that they're on a 6-game losing streak as of this moment. But they're 2-8 in their last 10. So basically, in this entire month of November, they are 2-8. It's not like the Raptors have been playing horribly. Yeah, there have been some duds. Looking more specifically to the Warriors game where they lost by double digits, they lost pretty bad to the Magic, and also lost to the Nets, even though I think that game was closer than many people thought it was going to be. But the point differential between the Raptors and the other teams they've faced, it's just 2 points. So the Raptors are staying in these games. But the problem is, there's this common theme when you watch the Raptors, especially throughout the month of December. And they start off really slow. They really can't get their offense going. And then they let the team get out to big, big leads. And then you always see near the end, the Raptors had a sense of urgency. They always play with this extra gear, this extra level defensively, and they force a lot of turnovers, get a lot of points, and make the game look passable. They look at a bit more competitive, even though for the majority of the part they have not looked great, to be completely honest. And it's not like last year where their defense was absolutely carrying this team. The offense is still middle of the pack, but the fact that the defense is middle of the pack is really the concerning part here, especially with the type of roster they have. The starting lineup consisting of, they removed Gary Trent from the starting lineup, so they basically went with Fred VanVleet, and 4 guys who are over 6'7" with OG, Juancho, Scotty, and Pascal. When you have that lineup out on the floor, you are giving up one thing very importantly, which is shooting, um, and the Raptors haven't been great at that at all this season. And when that team isn't playing defense, then it isn't playing fantastic defense, then it takes away kind of the whole purpose of that lineup in general. So I mean, if they're not like forcing the turnovers, if they're not getting out in the fast break, getting them easy points as they were in last season, then having 4, 6, like 7, 6, 9 guys on the court who don't have a great 3-point shot on them, or just not great shooters around Fred VanVleet, is going to make it really tough to win in the modern NBA. Along with that, the chemistry has been off, especially with like the people coming in and out of the lineup, and of course the injuries, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, I mentioned all the guys that got injured, but I wouldn't even make that as the main reason as to why the Raptors aren't playing so well. Is because you see teams like Golden State with Stephen Curry, they're struggling. You've seen the Bucks had to deal with the Chris Middleton injury for most of the year. You had the James Harden injury with the 76ers, and they're still really staying afloat. And the Raptors so far have not been able to do that. I talked about the defense, I talked about the offense. Now it's really just getting to 3-point shooting. Because, like I mentioned, if that starting lineup, especially because Nick Nurse does play them a lot of minutes, if they do not get, the defensive impact that they had last year, and they're not hitting their threes, that's what makes the game over for the Toronto Raptors. And because 3-point shooting right now is the biggest issue, if you look at just the entire season in general, second worst in the league in 3-point percentage at 32%, and they're third worst in terms of makes per game at 9.8. Even if we want to just look at the month of December in the last 10 games, it's gotten even worse since the beginning of the season, now down to 8 threes per game, now down to 30% from the field, from the 3-point line. So the Raptors right now as a collective are struggling. The one thing that is a saving grace for this team right now, I mean, yeah, Freddie has struggled. Yes, Scotty hasn't taken that sophomore jump. OG and Pascal have been fantastic. OG and Pascal. I mean, Pascal looks like a top 15 player in the league, and he's been playing like that on a consistent basis. I mean, even in that loss to the Philadelphia 76ers, I mean, come on now. He was absolutely carrying the Raptors, going 38, 15, and 6. OG Anunoby averaging almost 20 points a game while still being a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, being one of the best perimeter defenders in basketball. That's the type of jump we want to see. The only problem is we just don't have, like, the supporting pieces are not there, at least consistently for the Raptors. Fred VanVleet is having horrible shooting splits. Gary Trent Jr., he's a very good player. I just don't think he's part of this plan long term, it feels like. And he is a prime trade candidate probably in the next month or two. And Scotty, I mean, he hasn't really taken that jump. I think Katie put it best when he said that the league has kind of figured out Scotty right now. And he's still going to be a great player. It's only his second season. But he's going to have, now it's his turn to make the adjustments, not the other coaching staff. So that should be, I mean, even though he's like not been the best, I still think there have been some really bright moments for him this season, especially it was 2 losses against the Kings, and then following that, it was the loss to the Brooklyn Nets. But he absolutely dominated both fourth quarters. So you could see that scoring instinct, that killer instinct is in there for Scotty. He just needs to bring that out more on a consistent basis, and I think that comes with time. Again, it's only a second year. We can wait it out. The thing now for the Raptors is they might have to come to a realization, because right now, as of recording, as this is going to be posted on December 21st, they're 2 months away from the trade deadline, less than 2 months, in fact. And it feels like the way of basketball for the Raptors is not really suited for the modern NBA, especially without the reliable 3-point shooting. But it's weird because Masai Ujiri has always had this mentality, has always had this patience with this team, and it has paid off for the most part. Like him making like minor moves, maybe that one big move like he did for Kawhi a couple years ago, and they were able to win the championship. But at the end of the day, he is not a guy who makes too many moves in the regular season. I mean, he did make the Gary Trent Jr. move, but still. He's all about patience. So this is really going to test the Raptors' culture as to whether or not the Raptors are going to continue to stick with this group. They're going to continue to stay patient. Especially because there are a lot of rumors surrounding players like OG Anunoby being traded, Pascal potentially being traded. Freddie Van Vliet potentially being traded, or are they just gonna stand put, maybe do like the occasional trader here and there? Gary Trent Jr. He's on an expiry deal. Potentially, maybe that's the only trade the Raptors make. But this is really gonna show like what direction the Raptors are gonna go in, especially if the Raptors do continue to struggle. I mean, winning cures everything. So if the Raptors do win, then these headlines and then this talk about the Raptors is gonna go away. But right now, on a 6-game losing streak, losing 8 out of their last 10, people are going to be talking about this. And it's going to be interesting to see where the Raptors are able to go from here. Moving on to the next topic. And we're moving over from the East to the West. And I talked about injuries with the Toronto Raptors missing, a lot of guys missing significant time. Still, especially Otto Porter Jr. is still missing some time. Precious Achiuwa is going to miss still a couple months. But when looking at the West side of things, two teams who are looking to be contenders, one, the former NBA champions, are both dealing with some major injuries themselves. And it's not like, missing a Pascal for the Raptors. This is like big time. Steph Curry had an injury earlier this week. I think it was like a shoulder injury or something like that. And he's going to miss a minimum of 2 weeks, but they're not sure if it's going to be more than that or not. And AD with the Los Angeles Lakers, who is going to miss minimum 1 month due to his injury. Tough, absolutely tough for both these teams. Funnily enough, they're both like right next to each other in the standings right now. The Warriors being 11th, the Lakers being 10th. Being 12th, and they're both missing like basically their best players this year due to injury. Steph Curry. Let's start with the Warriors first. It sucks too because Wiggins, who has been averaging 19 points a game this year, has missed significant time for the Warriors as well. And when you go past that, that means Jordan Poole has moved to the starting lineup, which makes their bench worse. Klay Thompson, who has been inconsistent this year, hopefully you get a good Klay game every day, but that's not a guarantee anymore. And then Draymond Green, like we just don't know how effective he'll be going from game to game. But especially this year for the Warriors, where they started off super, super slow, losing Curry for 2 weeks can really dampen, I'm not going to say their playoff chances, but they're like avenues to move up the standings. Because right now, yes, they're only half a game behind the Dallas Mavericks. But 2 weeks in the Western Conference, a lot can change. The Mavs can go on a 4 or 5 game winning streak, completely surpass them. The Timberwolves, yes, they have not been playing great, but they've finally started to find their groove going on a 3-game winning streak. And then you have some just more reliable teams so far this year in the Utah Jazz, the Portland Trailblazers, the Sacramento Kings. Like their rosters from top to bottom have just been more reliable than the Warriors in terms of a collective roster. I mean, the starting five still one of the best in basketball. In terms of complete rosters, a lot of teams above them, especially with the injuries the Warriors have now, are better. They have been better than them this season. Not to mention, the Lakers are just behind them, and they still have LeBron in their lineup. It's really, really good. It's going to be really tough, and you're going to have to rely on the guys who have been inconsistent a lot this year to be consistent, and I don't know if that's going to be like a great plan of action. And yes, Jordan Poole is still a fantastic player. He's going to just go into the starting lineup role, probably average like 22-5, 22-6, because that's what Jordan Poole will do. But they gave him a lot of money, and I think like for situations like this, like where, not for like this, but for the future, knowing that Steph, Klay, and Dre are not going to be around forever, he's going to be like leading the next era of the Warriors. But losing out to players like an Otto Porter, like a Gary Payton Jr., like a Damian Lee, who have all played significant roles on this team in the past, missing them, it's been more tough because you're wanting to see the young guys grow, but when they're not ready, they're not ready. And that is really hurting their bench right now. And now with their depth like going lower and lower, it's like you're not gonna like find much success, especially when you're missing your best player for a decent chunk of time. Not too massive, but it's a decent amount of time. So yeah, it's gonna look bad for the Warriors. Hopefully it is the minimum 2 weeks, but again, you don't want to rush Steph Curry back and him risking another major injury. So I'm assuming this is probably gonna be closer to like a 3-4 week type thing, but we're gonna have to wait and see. Unfortunate for the Warriors though. And then Anthony Davis, I just wish this year was different. I really did. He's out for a month because of a foot injury that he has. And the Lakers are trying to finally figure things out. They're only 1.5 games behind the 10th seed, so of the play-in. And it has been perfectly clear this season that Anthony Davis has been their best player. He really has been, and he like when he's on the court, he has played at an MVP caliber level. But what sucks is that people looked at Anthony Davis's run, including myself, and be like, "Yeah, we know Anthony Davis is capable of this." But sooner rather than later, there's going to be a time where Anthony Davis is going to be like, okay, he's going to miss 3 weeks because of this nagging injury. He's going to miss a month due to this injury. He's going to miss a couple, maybe 5 to 6 games with this injury. I mean, and it's happening again. It is happening again, which, again, I wish this was different. I really wish it was, but this is why you just can't trust him as your number one option. This is why, because yes, he has number one talent. He has the way he is able to dominate on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. He has all the tools to be a number one guy. But when you look at his running, his ever growing injury history, it's hard to put that much faith in that type of player, because in times like this, they need him the most. He unfortunately gets an injury, and look, it's not his fault per se, but when you're getting repeated injuries like this, it's a pattern at this point. And as much as how great of a player he is, and at his best, he is a top 3 player in this league. You can never, even like one before he signed that max extension, the idea of re-signing Anthony Davis to a long-term deal was always a question mark because of that injury history. I think they are in a better case than the Warriors, though. I mean, the Warriors might miss that for only 2 weeks, but the Lakers, they still got LeBron, they still got Russell Westbrook coming off the bench, and they're starting to figure things out. So it's not too bad right now, but still, I do believe that that Anthony Davis thing they're gonna be missed. Hopefully let's see if they're gonna be able to still climb the standings, especially with LeBron still going hard in year 18. But it's unfortunate because you just wish AD would finally find consistent form, and he was looking like he was finding it. But another month of injuries. Hopefully he gets well soon. The Lakers are going to absolutely need it. Both teams having underachieved, who are looking underachieving right now, and now they have 2 of their star guys being injured. Unfortunate. It's funny because at the beginning of this podcast we talked about 2 basically just negative topics. How bad the Raptors have been, how much the Steph and AD injuries are going to hurt their teams respectively. Now let's go to a type of topic where you'd be like, what? This is happening right now? Yeah, I don't think it's being talked about enough, but the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks are currently on a 8-game winning streak. Crazy times if you're a New York Knicks fan, because during the stretch, it's absolutely crazy. Just watching them play, because they look absolutely fantastic. But the fact that that their games right now, that they are beating teams by an average of 18 points during this winning streak, is insane. It is just absolutely insane. Not just that, they're playing decent. They're hitting their threes at a decent clip at 37%, and they're holding. Yes, they're holding their opponents to under 30% from 3 during this 8-game winning streak as well. Now they're in the 6th seed in the East. They have an 18-13 record, and it looks really good there in New York. Which is funny, because if you look at the discourse around the New York Knicks this year, it was Julius Randle can't be a number 1 guy, and fair play. He's still having a solid season though. Julius Randle is still doing pretty well this season, averaging 22, 9, and 4. Sure, it's not his all-star numbers, 24, 9, and 6, from 41% from 3. It's not that, but he's still playing pretty solid. And of course, people always bashing on RJ Barrett for not taking that step. And you know what? Fair play. He has not been fantastic this year, especially with his shooting splits at 41% from 2 and under 30% from 3. He hasn't taken that step that they were hoping for. But really, the biggest difference as to why the Knicks are playing really well this year is the acquisition of Jalen Brunson. He, this season, is averaging 20 points per game, 6 assists on 47% shooting from the field. And people tend to forget this about the New York Knicks, but when was the last time that they really have a stable point guard at the point guard position? It has been a long time since they were able to have that. And Jalen Brunson, being their best point guard probably of the past how many decades, is showing why just a stable, a calming presence in a Jalen Brunson is exactly what the New York Knicks would need. Like, he's been absolutely fantastic this year, in my opinion, playing like a top 10 point guard in the league right now. And not only is he able to just put these numbers up on a daily basis, they're able to go to him at the end of games, and he has been able to hit shots, which has been absolutely key to the Knicks' success. I mean, I think I remember like a few games ago, he was like supposed to, like, I think it was like last Sunday or something. He was supposed to be hurt. He wasn't supposed to play that game, but then he had a fantastic game, and he ended up hitting the go-ahead bucket with like 30 seconds left that ultimately sealed the win for the Knicks. You have those two guys playing at a pretty high level, and then besides that, you have Thibs really changing up the rotation as he, like, completely different than what he had from previous years. Because if you look at the New York Knicks, like, people who are getting minutes at the moment, they removed Evan Fournier from the rotation. Derrick Rose isn't playing that many games so far this year. But you know who is getting more minutes? Obi Toppin, Cam Reddish, Quentin Grimes, Mitchell Robinson staying a bit more healthy. You have these guys. Oh, Emmanuel quickly getting even more minutes. It's becoming like a completely different thing for the New York Knicks, and it's something that I wasn't expecting from Tom Thibodeau, but it's happening, and honestly, it is a positive change for the future, because Thibodeau has always been that coach to always play his guys a lot of minutes, and then the guys he would bring off the bench, he wouldn't use it as development time. No. He would use it to, like, have like his like role play, like his like veteran role players in them. I mean, probably the old Thibodeau would trust Mikhailuk and Fournier more than, you know, a Grimes and a Quickly, but things are changing right now, and honestly, it's changing in a positive way for this New York Knicks team. And look, there are some negatives to this team for sure, but a lot of things do get mitigated when you have a all-star level point guard, which I believe Jalen Brunson is right now. And he kind of like patches up for the mistakes where you don't have to give the ball to Randall 24/7. You don't have to give RJ Barrett a lot of handling responsibilities. We got that now in Jalen Brunson, and that does wonders for your team, and he is able to, you know, make a massive difference in the team this year. Now, is this really sustainable? I don't know. I'm not really confident in that, you know, but it's good. I think it's a good culture change for the New York Knicks. And as long as, you know, Jalen Brunson can stay on the court, as long as you can get still the 20 points per game from RJ, get, you know, all-star level numbers from Julius Randle, I can't see why not they can keep this form up, especially with the injuries being had with the Atlanta Hawks, the Miami Heat, the Toronto Raptors at the moment, the Bulls, all those teams that were supposed to be in the playoff mix. They've been struggling, and it looks like, you know, the struggles are going to continue going forward. The Knicks, everything looks good right now. I mean, the only thing that has to do with injuries that they had to deal with was Mitchell Robinson coming in and out the lineup, but, you know, that's a given. But the Knicks, they look like they're in a good place. I'm very happy for them. Let's see what they're going to be able to, if they're going to be able to maintain this. I really like the way they've been playing so far. And them winning by like almost 40 against the Warriors, making them look like a freaking G League team. Heavily impressive, even without Steph Curry in the lineup. Now we're going to move on to the final segment of the show, and we're going to be discussing here kind of like my favorite, like a new series. At least I'm going to keep this going until basically the trade deadline. And it's basically me looking at 3 trade candidates, but they're all on 3 different levels. We have a low-tier trade candidate, a mid-tier trade candidate, and a high-tier one. I'm going to get one player from each of these tiers, and basically I'm going to talk about where I would like to see them next, because it feels like, especially with some players in the league, they're inevitable to go, or there have been a lot of rumors about them going. So I think it's going to be a good discussion point as to like where we would like to see these trades happen. Of course, I'm going to start off with the low tier firstly, and there's been a lot of buzz around this guy, and I feel like he should have been traded ages ago, but anytime's a good time. Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon, he, if people still remember, he is on the Houston Rockets. He has been there since the CP3 James Harden combo days, which feels like an eternity ago, but he is still there. But honestly, you know, Eric Gordon, even though he has been sticking around with the Houston Rockets, he has still been very good. I mean, not really this season, averaging 11 points a game, only 2 rebounds, 2 assists. But we've seen in previous years, you know, last year, 13 points a game. The year before that, almost 18 points a game. So he is still able to provide buckets, hit the 3-point shot. and just be that rock off their bench that you can just give him the ball and he can create his own bucket. I would like to see him on the Phoenix Suns. Because I'm looking at the Suns roster, and yes, they are still in contendership. I will still stand by that. But they don't really have that flamethrower coming off the bench. You don't really have that guy who can create for himself. I think that Campaign is good at creating for others. He has okay shot creating abilities. But I still believe that Eric Gordon is better. It would be a nice addition to that lineup beside Campaign. Someone who can spot up, someone who can move off the ball, someone who can handle the ball and actually get his own shot off. I think he'd be really good with the Phoenix Suns. And moving him to a contender would be really nice for his career. He's been stuck on that real Goalie Rockets team for 3 years now, ever since they made it to the conference finals. So, yeah, I think it would be a good trade for them. I don't think it'll take much too. If you do have a second pick around Phoenix, that could be enough. Maybe throw in someone just to make the contracts work. I don't know. But yeah, Eric Gordon, I would like to see him on the Phoenix Suns. Moving on to the next player on this list, we're going to be talking about John Collins. Yes. Someone who I feel like has also been in trade rumors for the last few years, just because, there was that thing a couple years ago where him and Trae Young weren't getting along, and they've been debunking that, and honestly, I think that same season, they ended up going to the Eastern Conference Finals, so that was a thing. He was in trade rumors last year, that didn't happen, and once again, John Collins is back here, and I feel like this year is the year he's finally going to get traded, especially because the Hawks have been underwhelming so far. Yes, it is because DeJounte Murray has been injured too. Trae Young has missed some time. John Collins himself has missed some time. But I feel like because of their underwhelming start, I feel like John Collins becomes more expendable. Because now they see him in that third role with DeJounte and Trae, and it still kind of isn't working. So I feel like could be the year to trade John Collins. And I would like to see him, honestly, on the Sacramento Kings. I've seen some rumors that the Kings have been trying to pursue Pascal Siakam so far this year. And I think that if that doesn't work out, which I highly doubt they'll actually go through, they can get a light version of him. And I think John Collins is that type of player. We've seen him in the past had 20-10 seasons. And I know it hasn't been, fantastic this year. He's only averaging 12-7. He's not having a great year, especially compared to the last 2 years where he's averaging basically 17 a game in both. It hasn't been great, but we've seen what John Collins can do with the right point guard and Trae Young. Him and Trae Young together had that nice little connection. Put him with De'Aaron Fox, and also another good passing big man and Domantas Sabonis. So he should be able to find himself open a lot of the times. You have him; he can space the floor, be a lob threat for De'Aaron Fox, and we've seen him in the past, especially in that conference final run for the Atlanta Hawks. He could play with a certain defensive intensity where he is able to be that defensive anchor for a team. Which the Kings, if they can get that effort from John Collins this year, that would be very good because they are still, a middle-of-a-pack defensive team. Maybe inserting him to the starting lineup and, shipping off Harrison Barnes or something could make a massive difference to that, to their defense. Okay, it would have a massive, massive impact. I just think he'll be a good fit there. I don't think it'll take too much to trade him compared to trying to pick up Pascal Siakam. But the Kings have draft picks. They have maybe a young player they could throw at him. They have the Harrison Barnes contract to make things work. The pieces are there. It's just whether the Kings would want to invest in John Collins as their quote-unquote third star. He's been in trade rumors for a while. I think this would be a good landing place for him, and I think that just, elevates the ceiling of the Kings just a little bit more, and maybe will be enough to secure them a playoff spot this year. Final player I want to talk about here is someone who has been in the news this week recently because of reports that him and his organization don't see eye to eye at the moment. So this has prompted me to put him in the high tier of trade candidates. I gotta talk about Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine had the reports. There were reports coming out this week about Zach LaVine not being overly happy with the organization of the Chicago Bulls and that they're not seeing eye to eye right now. And you already know in the GM's heads, they're hearing that like, oh, he's unhappy. Let's give him a call. Maybe a trade could be in the works. And he's been a multiple-time All-Star 2 times already. And he has shown that he, at his best, could be one of the best scorers in the NBA. Now, his numbers have not been super, super crazy this year, only averaging just under 22 points a game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. 36% from the 3-point line and 44% from the field. A little like just way more inefficient than he has been in previous years. But you can make the argument that it's the product of how bad the Bulls have been this year, that Zach LaVine has also been struggling. And maybe you also feel that maybe he would be better in a different environment, especially because the Bulls kind of like showed us their peak last year as to like how good they could be, and to be honest, it isn't that great. But I think on this new team I'm going to put him on, I think that he could really flourish again, be that 25 to 30 point per game scorer. Let's see him in Dallas. Let's see Zach LaVine in Dallas. I feel like him and Luka Doncic together in the backcourt. Yes. Will the defense be sus? Yes. But their scoring abilities together, the fact that Zach LaVine can come off screens, hit those 3-point shots, him being able to cut back door, finish in the lane, being a very good free throw shooter as well in his career, being an 83% free throw shooter. You have him and Luka being together. We've seen Zach LaVine be able to win games on his own at the end of games, so he could really put a lot of pressure off Luka Doncic. You have that combo together. I think that could really take the Mavericks up to the next level. Now, I don't have the package that will make that happen, but that could be something that the Bulls can explore. Maybe the Mavs can give them 3-4 draft picks or whatever, especially because Zach LaVine's, I'm not sure if he's going to expire this year, but his contract is almost done. I think he would just be like a nice little thought experiment to see him beside Luka Doncic, both great shot creators. And people have been talking about Luka Doncic doesn't have enough help around him, especially in terms of creating for himself and others. LaVine might not be able to do the others part, set up others people, even though he's okay for assists per game. But he could someone that could definitely defer to Luka Doncic. Luka can defer to him. And I think he would be a very, very good piece for the Mavericks, which can really take them over the top. Maybe not title contenders, but he could really solidify themselves as a playoff team. And remember, this is coming off reports from earlier this week, and also the Bulls just having a really slow start, being 11th in the East. So I highly doubt it's going to happen, but if it does happen, I would love to see the Dallas Mavericks pick up Zach LaVine 110%. But yeah, those are all the topics for today. Let me know down below what you guys think about the topics. If you have any suggestions for the trade candidates you want me to talk about in the next episode, leave it down in the comments below, and the Instagram, DM me, all that good stuff. I'll definitely try and get to them. But yeah, I think this is where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and also hit the notification bell. And remember to follow TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for updates on the podcast and for other great content. I should be back next week with a better update as to where the podcast is going to be going, so be on the lookout for that. That's the last one of the year, so I might be doing something around, the top 10 moments from the calendar year 2022 in the NBA. That could be something we could do for the final one of 2022. And yeah, just more updates coming along that, so be on the lookout for that. And anything I'm missing? Yeah, just be lookout on some just for daily content on the other podcast for the other social media channels. So yeah, thank you guys for all the support, and can't wait to see some more NBA basketball and to see the NBA. The NBA Christmas games happening this weekend. Usually would preview them this year. Maybe might do it on my TikTok. Be on the lookout for that as well. But yeah, there's a lot of great NBA happening this week. Hope you all enjoyed that. Hope all of you enjoy the holidays, whatever you're celebrating, Hanukkah, Christmas, any other sort of holiday celebrated by other religions. Hope you enjoy it. Spend some time with your family, and just really have an awesome week. This is where we're gonna end things. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is TV signing out. Take it easy, guys. Peace.